Well, welcome back. And today is the map portion of our program. This is fusion writing, where building character meets creating structures. And we have the two sides of our program with Victoria Crowder presenting structure and how to put it in your story and how to organize your story. And I'm presenting character development at the fundamental character level, where we have the ability to control and understand the emotions behind the characters and what's driving them, where we can get to something that is at a fundamental level where your audience will automatically understand what's going on because of the common struggles that we all have. So this is the time that we get into a little bit more detail. And as always, we're going to begin with the structure element, because it's always nice to hang details on top of structure. So without further ado, I'm going to turn over to Victoria.
Hello, Lilligans. Welcome back. I'm so glad that you have come back for another edition of Fusion Writing. Yesterday, we looked at a high level at the major players in a story. So I'm going to pop on my screen share right quick. Oh, it's not letting me share.
Oh.
I think we need to enable it.
Enable.
There we go.
I'll clip that part out.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so welcome to my little world. Over here on the left, I have a quick overview that is provided over in the downloads over in Fusion Writing on LiLLiPub. So that's where you can get all of your worksheets. Character development overview. The first one is our protagonist. Now, you may recall from yesterday that our protagonist is our good guy. Okay, so you're going to develop your main point of view character, which is your main good guy, and use the worksheet as a prompt for the details. So over here on the right-hand side where it says development guide, when I say use the worksheet, this is what I'm referring to. And you're going to start right here on page 3 where it says now your turn. So don't get too far in the weeds on these questions. These are just prompts to get you started. When we get into week 3 and talk specifically about the Zettelkasten, I'm going to go through this worksheet with you, and we're going to talk about how to build specific cards that help you build out your character. But suffice it to say for today, we're just concerned with the high level points. So when you're talking about your protagonist, let's jump back over here to the left side. That's your good guy, your main focal character. They're going to possess a full story arc. That means they're going to begin in one place and they're going to end up someplace else. They will undergo some kind of transformation as a result of the challenges of the story. So for example, maybe someone is going to go from careless to grateful. Okay, so you're going to give them challenges and obstacles and trials and inner journeys that help them go from where they begin, which is maybe being a careless individual, to someone who becomes grateful as a result of what they've learned. Another example is maybe they go from being someone who's reckless to someone who's responsible. Again, when Kathleen talks about balance and using that as a metric for your characters, that's what you're looking at is how am I going to take them from too much reckless over here to being responsible over there? What kinds of incidents do they need to make that transformation? A final example is what if they go from someone who's selfish to someone who's giving? Again, you can imagine what that trajectory might look like. If they're maybe a selfish only child who's never had any challenges and they go through a series of situations and conflicts that leave them feeling much more giving and selfless than when they began. Those are great character arcs, and that's what your protagonist is hallmarked by. They go through that transformation. Now let's look at our second one. Our second guy is our villain. Your villain is the main point of conflict with your protagonist. They're going to affect each other's growth. They're going to affect each other's advancement. They're tied together for some reason in the story. So a common mistake is you throw in your bad guy and he's got a curly mustache and an evil laugh, and he's almost a caricature of a bad guy. That's not a good villain. You want your villain to have depth. And as we continue to explore the character traits and how to use balance as a way to figure out where is this person now and where are they going to end up in the end, we're going to help you figure out how to build into that villain the evil, terrible, awful things that make them a good villain. You want to have a good, strong bad guy, not a plastic mustachioed one. Those are no fun. So let's talk about what kind of story arc is a villain going to take? Well, a protagonist, a good guy, often takes a positive character arc. They start out someplace here and they end up someplace better because of the conflicts and challenges that they've endured. Often, your villain has a negative arc. They start out somewhere, maybe they were wronged by the family of the good guy, and thereby they have it in for the good guy, and it becomes their mission to destroy him. And everything that they experience through the story only validates that the good guy is the source of all bad things in their life. They fully believe this is true and that they're right in their quest to destroy your good guy. And therefore they go down that negative arc of becoming more and more evil, adversarial, more conflicting, etc. So that's a simple overview of how you get that done. What if your good guy and your bad guy are siblings, okay? And the older one has gotten all of the attention, all of the success, and etc. And the younger one is therefore jealous and resentful and has it in for the older one because the younger one feels that they deserve everything that the older one has gotten. So you start to see how you look at these relationships and start to figure out what would this person feel like if they experienced that. And Kathleen's going to talk specifically to how to capture those pieces of emotion and build them into your characters so that they become that much more compelling. Finally, we have the antagonist. As I mentioned yesterday, the antagonist does not have to be a villain. They're just another obstacle or pressure point. So sometimes your antagonist will be genre dependent or style dependent. When we get further down into the different kinds of antagonists, there's 5, we'll talk specifically about those things. But for today, I just want to bring your attention to the kinds of antagonists you might throw in. We've already talked about what if it's weather? What if you throw in a storm or some kind of natural disaster that throws your protagonist and your villain together? Okay, the antagonist is the weather. It's just a tool that you're using to get them together. That's perfectly valid, but that's still an antagonist and it needs to be well written. What if it's family, like Romeo and Juliet? You've got 2 battling families and the young lovers fall in love in spite of it. That's kind of a situational sort of antagonist. Or it could even be something like society or society's norms. You know, you could have someone who's upper class, someone who is classed beneath them. So it's the societal structure that is antagonizing them on top of the bad guy that wants to do them harm. So you can stack these things up, the whole point being to give your reader that pressure that keeps them turning pages to find out what happens next. It's all about making sure that you take your reader on that journey and use the tools like multiple varied antagonists to get that done. You could even have an animal. I mentioned in the last one, what about Cujo? Cujo is a great villain and antagonist, and that dog keeps the pressure on through the whole story. So when you're looking at how to use these things, that's what you're doing. You're just figuring out how can I keep that pressure on my characters and make them suffer, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to torment our characters. Now I'm going to pop over to the second worksheet that's called the Character Development Grid. It's on the left side of my screen. The top is just a place for notes. The bottom has checkboxes with research questions and tasks. And then the very bottom has another little space for notes. So this is just a simple way, since you're looking at your characters at a high level right now, to say, okay, I'm going to start with my protagonist. Her name is Sarah. So you're going to write in Sarah's name over here. And then you're going to start asking your questions. What might have happened in Sarah's past that is giving her trouble, or that's something that she's going to need to transform over? Make those notes here. And then in the box below under research, give yourself tasks. Maybe if Sarah was in a death-defying storm as a child, she's going to have to yet again face down the worst storm of the century. Well, maybe you're going to need to do a little bit of weather research to figure out how to write that storm well. Okay, so that's how you use your developmental grid to just jot down those ideas that you have and give yourself the breadcrumbs to follow for what you might need to find out in order to write it well. We'll come back to this again later, but this is a handy tool to just get those things out of your head and onto the page so that you don't forget about them. Finally, the last handout is your development guide. Again, don't get too in the weeds with this because we're going to talk about it next week, but I wanted you to have it in your hands just to review so you can start to think about those little details that are going to make your characters come to life. So I'll let you review this on your own time. Pop over to LiLLiPub and download your worksheets, and then we'll continue to work on how to build out those characters so that they are compelling, they have great challenges, and they give your reader a terrific story to follow along. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to hand the mic over to my esteemed colleague to talk to you about character traits.
Well, thank you so much. That was so informative, and I really look forward to playing with your character development grid, and I'm looking forward to next week. I'm a great fan of the Zettelkasten as well, and I look forward to sharing with you how I keep track of character traits using in my Zettelkasten. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about as we go into that week is how to capture moments. Well, what we're doing with in my area, we're starting out with the 4 character trait groups. And so we saw resilience last week, and this week we are looking at the balance group. And because we're looking at a whole group of character traits, we're talking at a general level and not at a specific level. And character traits are rather interesting in that regard because, in a way, if you're talking about groups of character traits, it's kind of like trying to play the piano wearing oven mitts. Fung, fung, fung. You know, you don't get much melody out of it because they're too, if you really want to communicate character traits, that happens down at the level of the individual character trait. So we're not there yet, but we're at the point where we want to think about how these groups of character traits are going to begin to affect your characters. And so I will show you the worksheet that you're going to be working with starting tomorrow. I'll do a screen share here. So here is the course material that you are going to be dealing with on the rest of the week. This will be the time period from Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You'll be able to pick this up right away. You can even pick it up today. And what we're trying to do with the balance trait right now is get you thinking about where balance functions in your life and where balance might function in the life of your character. So what I want to orient you here to this map on balance. And what you'll see is the question part are your map. That's the area where you're going to be able to focus in on what the balance traits offer you. And then the areas with these steering wheels are going to be the areas where you're doing some exercises with it, trying to play with the material. So this is what you're going to be working through. And what you're going to find out is as we go through each week of the course, where we're presenting materials on the first 2 weeks of the month, you're going to be looking at worksheets that are something like this, where you're going to have your reference sheet, and they'll be when we're getting down to the individual character traits, they'll be 2-page, not 1-page, because you'll have more specifics on the character trait. But this is really basically how you're going to be working with it. One of the things that we're going to try to do with writing with emotion, which is what the character traits give you, is we're going to be connecting the emotions that we feel with certain keywords. And we're going to be building up the capability to write down a short phrase or even a single word and be able to call up a set of emotions. And that can be very, very powerful when you sit down to write, because you've got your story planned out and you know where you want it to go. Thank you, Victoria. But now you've got to write the scene. And if you want to write the scene, you've got to write it with genuine emotions. So we're going to become collectors of emotions. And we're going to be learning how to focus in on a certain character trait so you know where to look for the emotions. And you'll have very targeted questions to help you identify those things. Then we're going to remember those times either in our own lives or in a great piece of fiction that we've written, or a wonderful piece of poetry, or some scene that we witnessed that's very vivid to us, where those emotions are present. And we're going to learn how to take the time to live in those emotions for a little bit and then capture them. This is where the Zettelkasten is going to come in. We're going to end up capturing them onto file cards, where a single line on the file card will pull those emotions back to life. And we're going to actually practice bringing emotions to life by looking at a single word or looking at a single phrase. We will start out with a story, we'll boil it down to a phrase, and then when we put it on a character profile diagram, eventually you'll be able to do it with a single word and call up the emotions of your story. So if you are not yet on LiLLiPub, pop on over, because this is where you'll get this worksheet. Otherwise, I suppose you can pause the video and copy it off the screen, but I really think it's worth it. If you're in the US, it's only $8 a month. Currency in different countries will make the price different, but it's very, very reasonable in price. And when you think about it, especially right now, while we're new, this is only the second week of this course, and we're therefore few in numbers. This is your chance to get some practically private coaching that is worth hundreds of dollars. And as a newcomer, it's a really golden opportunity. So seriously think about it. If you're serious about your writing, invest. I mean, that's a pretty small amount of money to invest for what you're going to get out of it. You're going to get a supportive community, and you're going to get people that care about you developing your writing skills and care about you getting your story out. You're not going to find that in other places. I bet if you've looked, you've seen that that's not there. It's just not available other places. So hope to see you over in LiLLiPub, and we'll talk more about balance on that occasion. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Awesome.